we have structures that find, that harmonize, that try to harmonize the chaos that you have. And it's through hundreds of years of observation that we've arrived here, through calculation. But I kind of want to start with, we're going to go even further back than this, but a good example of this is 2,000 years ago. Aristophanes, he's a Greek, really early Greek guy. He was over 2,000 years ago. And he discovered the circumference of the Earth long before he actually discovered it. I'm sure you've heard the story, by putting up pylons, several, I don't know what actual unit of measure that they use in Greek to determine miles or kilometers, but they put pylons, big plinths, a certain distance apart from each other, and he measured the shadow distance at the real time and was able to determine the circumference of the Earth, and that our Earth is a sphere, because at the time we thought the Earth was flat. But then it took over 1,000 years for this knowledge to become accessible. It always just gets put under, and so he was one really good example where he just used very simple ideas and actually figured something out. And Newton was just a huge, as I said before, huge advancement, actually. I've never really thought about him so much, but he was an actual huge advancement in determining the mathematical principles and the laws of thermodynamics that govern our physical and natural world, so that was extremely important. And whenever Newton's physics, they don't seem to line up, they don't seem to work, it's usually because there's something hidden that we don't know that's going on. And a really good example of this is how we discovered Neptune, because we actually didn't know that Neptune was there until like 1846, because we saw that Uranus was moving slightly slower at times. And we're like, why is this occurring? What is going on? There must be another body. This is breaking Newtonian physics, because this Uranus should not be moving at speed right now. There must be another body that's affecting its gravitational pull. So through Newtonian physics, they were able to point their telescope in 1846 at the precise point in the sky where their math lined up, and they discovered Neptune right there. And just through these systems, they were able to advance that are simple. It just takes simple observation. And I think it all is leading towards a higher awareness of a self-organization of the cosmos. This is kind of what I've always thought. I mean, everything seems chaotic in our life, like a deck of cards, just all sprawled out everywhere, right? A deck of cards, like when was the last time you saw all this sprawled out deck of cards form perfectly back into an organized deck by itself, right? It seems impossible. But we are human beings made up of quadrillions of particles and 15 trillion cells that are all working together, organized perfectly, creating a human being. So how nature works is in this peaceful, perfect field, and how we experience life seems to be in chaotic, physical dimensions. But what creates the manifest world seems to be from a very perfect, harmonized source that's ineffable, but you can understand the patterns of it in a way. So let's actually begin, because I haven't actually started the presentation. Let's see how this is. Okay. I'm so out of breath already. This mic is like weird. Like I feel like it's like really loud and then really soft sometimes. But it's my fault. Okay. So metrology is the science of measurement. It goes back really far, but the actual science of measurement was a French Renaissance discovery. This science term was discovered around the 1700s in France, when French architects were actually getting really into Egyptology, and they were going to Egypt and they were surveying and measuring the monuments. And they studied the cubit, the Egyptian system of measuring, and all the others, and they formed the kilometer, actually. They formed the kilometer based on Earth's meridian circumference, which in 1756 they thought it was 40,000 kilometers exactly, but it's slightly off. So the number here that is important is 400 or 4,000 for So like, they were able to, they had the knowledge of the circumference, and then they were able to form a unit of measurement that's proportional to the size of the Earth. Okay, and the Earth is actually not a perfect sphere. It's now known it's an oblate spheroid, so it's not. I can't even see that down there, but it's not a perfect sphere. So it actually changes its circumference at the equator, and the meridian, which is the vertical, is actually a shorter distance. But the kilometer is based on this. It's also, another way to measure the kilometer is that it's 1/10,000,000th of the distance from the North Pole to the equator. So it passes right through the Paris Prime Meridian, which is a very important geographical point. And so that is interesting because the meter, in a way, is, when you build with the meter, it is resonating with the Earth. It's a proportion of the Earth, It's based on earlier measurements. But it is a mystery as to how it was actually defined, but this is how. It's a mystery how they had this knowledge actually around then, but it was from earlier Pythagorean knowledge that was hidden because the church, they wouldn't let this knowledge, So they kind of had to secretly find it, and then it just became self-evident. Thank God that the church accepted it. But that number of 40,000 kilometers, that is the circumference, is an important number because, there is so much evidence of harmony in our solar system and in everything that we see. And I think the best example of this is the moon and sun proportion, which is 400 exactly. The moon is 400 times smaller than the sun, and the sun is 400 times further away than the moon, creating a perfect alignment, creating life as we know it on this Earth. And remember, again, the Earth is 40,000 kilometers, so these are numbers that are the same, and they're resonating with each other. And it's a perfect harmony. The moon, it's interesting, because the moon is, it's almost perfectly around our equator, so sometimes, I'm crazy. The moon has a non-eccentric orbit around our planet, which is very strange because this is not supposed to occur in nature. When we see any of the other moons in our solar system, they have wildly eccentric orbits around the planet, but our moon is perfectly, spherically, circularly rotating around our Earth, almost perfectly around the equator, like right around the equator, but it's 5 degrees off, barely off. So because of that, we see 0 to 2 solar eclipses a year. But if it was right on the equator, we'd see one a month. One solar eclipse a month. Imagine that happening on Earth, where at once a month it's the time of the eclipse, and it's almost there. It's like very close, but because it's 5 degrees off, it only happens every once in a while. It has been speculated that the moon was actually perfectly around the equator and slightly closer to Earth several million years ago. And if you look at the history of plants and biology and everything, and animals and dinosaurs, everything was larger, everything was huge. The plants were huge, the animals were huge, because we had perfect harmony. The moon was perfectly around the equator, and it was filling up more of the space than the sun. And that created life as we know it on Earth, which was these possibly dumb beasts that were destroying each other and eating each other. So I think perfect harmony actually creates dinosaurs. And insane abundance, plants galore, animals galore, but they're all fighting, killing, and fucking each other. So it's like, the universe itself was like learning, and it's like, oh, okay, perfect harmony is not actually perfect harmony. It needs to be slightly fucked, some dirt under the fingernail. So get the moon a little off there, and then we'll see what happens then. Well, that's where we live now. It's just where it's at, and it's a very great in-between of harmony and chaos, very great duality. It's because of these proportions that create, like I said, and the other piece of information is Earth is spinning 400 times faster than the moon. It's twisting. The moon is tidally locked to Earth, so it's always pointing towards it at the same. So because of that, the Earth is actually spinning much faster, and that's another number that aligns with the size of the moon and Earth and sun and everything. So, and this is just a graph of ancient metrologies with all the different measuring systems that have existed that I know about. It starts with the 6th cubit that goes back the furthest. I think the arrows are going in the wrong direction, but we use the English foot and the kilometer, which is not even on here. I don't even know why, but the cubits were used in Egypt and Greece, and they are proportions of the measurements that we use today. And the English foot in miles, a whole other story, how that was created. I believe there's 8 furlongs that creates a mile, and a furlong is 660 feet, which is a certain amount of sacred cubits. So it all goes back to Egyptian astrology. There's speculation that, I want to speculate. Let's just talk about what we know. I'm trying to be as truthful as possible here, because this is pretty wacky stuff, and we really get into it. I just want us to be more, just the information that is just truthful. So, you're 33! I love how mystical 33 is. I've just always been drawn to 33 my whole life, but, okay, so there are some interesting things about it. I think it's really just about the space between rather than things in of themselves, but some things in of themselves have some qualities inherently, actually. Well, they're describing the harmony in our universe, like 400 was with the moon and earth and sun proportion. But 33, I feel like it kind of is talking about completion or transcendence, the quality of 33, because middle C on the piano is 33 harmonics above the Schumann resonance, which is the frequency at which the center of our Earth, it has this natural frequency, which is changing, but the average is 7.83 hertz. The center of our Earth, which every planet has different frequencies at the center. And middle C happens to be exactly equal tempered. What we use today as middle C is exactly 33 harmonics above it. And when you go 33 feet down in sea level, it's 1 atmosphere of pressure, which is a barometric form of measurement pressure. And to leave the Earth, you have to go Mach 33 to get away from the track of Earth. You have to go Mach 33. That's 33 times the speed of sound to leave the gravity well of Earth. So when you're going up from Earth and you're going down to Earth, it has to do with 33. The sun's core spins once every 33 days, and the sun is 333,000 times the mass of Earth. So all these things kind of relate to emanation from the sun, some kind of transformation, or leaving Earth. 33 kind of has to do with that, if you like. And then that kind of leads us to more solar numbers, like 864. The diameter is 864 miles, or 864,000 miles, and there's 86,400 seconds in a day. And I think this one's really interesting, but my hair is blocking it. But 35 millimeter film, the area of every frame is 864 millimeters. And think about that. Light comes through the film frame, and this all has to do with the sun, this number. It all has to do with the amount of seconds in a day, the diameter of the sun, and then also the light coming through the film reel to show you the movie. So there's a lot of things with this number that have to do with light and sun in our solar system. At least these are the things that I've found myself. This is where it gets a little bit wacky. Okay, so this is a funny synchronicity that I found that is just out of this fucking world. And people have debated this all over the place, but I've done the research myself, and it's hard to debate it. You should really think about this. So there's just this latitude of the Great Pyramid of Giza that happens to be the same number of the speed of light in meters of a second. And it's the exact same number. So the speed of light in meters of a second is this insanely wild number. And if you put the same numbers into Google Earth as latitude, it goes exactly to the center apex of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Perfectly. It goes perfectly right to the center apex, like exactly. And that's the same number. If you look in the top left, I mean, it's the same number for number. And there's debate that this could be fudged because the last 4 numbers of the latitude are all very precise. So the last 4 numbers don't really matter. The first 4 that really show the location, but even the first 4, it lines up perfectly with the Great Pyramid. So it's just a little weird that the pyramid encodes a lot of information in it. I mean, I think everybody's kind of secretly obsessed with the pyramids, whether they want to admit it or not. I don't know what it is about them. But I actually have been looking into it my whole life because I just wonder, like, what is this with the pyramids? And I really think it's because they encode a lot of information. So, like, if anything were to happen on Earth, like a cataclysm or something, we would have the information stored in the Great Pyramid so that we can rebuild our civilization. There's a lot of information there. But it's such an accurate building, it just cannot be built today. I know this for a fact because the newest solar observatory in England that was built just a few years ago, it's not as aligned as perfectly to true north as the Great Pyramid of Giza is today still. It is so perfectly aligned with the cardinal directions within a 15th of a degree to true north still today, which is probably just through the earth shaking that made that 1/15 of a degree. And the apex of the Great Pyramid of a 13-acre base is a quarter of an inch off from perfect center. Of a 13 acres. That's insanely accurate. There's 2.3 million stones used for the pyramid. To have that kind of accuracy of getting to a quarter of an inch off from perfect center, even if you start from the apex, doesn't matter because the perimeter extends from there. To have that kind of accuracy, you would actually need quantum microns of length of accuracy to create this kind of accurate building today. So how the fuck did they do it then? I have no idea. I make no claims about that. But there's incredible things about it. Phi, the circumference of the Earth, is all encoded in it. This pi is the relationship from the base, the corner to the middle, and the height. Phi is the relationship from the corner to the middle to the length. And the circumference of the Earth is embedded in this as well because it's 43,200 seconds in 12 hours, and the Egyptians supposedly used this number for a lot of their architecture. And I don't know if this was built by the Egyptians, but the people that built this used this number quite a bit. The perimeter is 3,000 or so feet. If you times that by the amount of seconds in 12 hours, you get the exact circumference of the Earth. Now, it's not exact. It's 24,734 miles. So it's within a 99.4% accuracy of the actual circumference of the Earth. But damn, that is fucking close, to embed that in the building. What's crazy about 43,200 and 432 is if you times 432 by 432, you get the speed of light again in miles per second. And that's to a 99.8% accuracy. But there's something with that number as well, that, the amount of seconds in 12 hours, so it has some significance, but it's talking about the speed of light, and this building is referencing it on so many different levels that link back to it. And of course, the builders didn't know anything about the speed of light. It's just, I think that the things that humans do are beyond what we really think that we're doing. We're doing things more organized than what we realize, I think. So we don't have to know. But Pythagoras is kind of like where I'm jumping to next. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but he spent a lot of time in Egypt and was initiated. His dad was a trader and a merchant. Like everybody in Greece, I guess, was just a merchant that traveled the world. And then those are the people that retired and became philosophers because they went to Egypt, they went to Persia and Mesopotamia and all over the place. But this is one of the most discredited academics of history. People don't like Pythagoras because this guy's a fucking wizard. And people don't like to talk about wizards in academia. They like to talk about facts and truth. But this guy invented so much. This guy advanced civilization, even though it wasn't advanced until so much further afterwards. But he's the founder of philosophy. He put two words together. I love putting two words together. It's weird words, but love for wisdom. Philosophy. He made the word philosophy, the love for wisdom, because he loves learning about shit all the time. I love this guy. I just have a weird connection with Pythagoras lately. But he also invented the first ratios of musical frequencies. There's actually no written accounts of when he was alive because they were all burnt at the stake, but supposedly he heard anvils being built and a hammer on an anvil, and they would have different tones. And he was like, oh my god, wait, the size of the hammer or the size of the anvil actually affects the frequency of the tone. And frequency and pitch, he realized, are the same thing. Frequency and pitch. That if you have double the frequency, you have double the pitch. So for instance, if you have 220 hertz, you times that by 440, you have double the frequency and double the pitch. So he created the ratios of musical frequencies, which that would be 2-to-1 ratio, which is an octave. and he created the 3 to 1, 3 to 2, very simple ratios that created Pythagorean music, which that existed all the way up until the piano became equal tempered, and that was, almost 2,000 years later. So we used Pythagorean music, which was imperfect actually, but it was an incredible advancement. And then he also thought that Earth was a sphere. He also discovered the circumference of the Earth, and that Earth was a sphere, and that there's a center of our galaxy that he said that there's like a central fire, which is not our sun. Our sun was separate, so he didn't have it quite right. But he came up with a heliocentric model in 500 BC, when that was introduced by Copernicus in 15 or 1600 AD, 2,000 years later. But he came up with this because it was already known. It was known in Egypt that they knew about heliocentrism. They knew it there, and he was given the information. This information was passed down, And so he had some of the knowledge, but he was burned at the stake and killed. Actually, he was terrified of beans, and there was people attacking him, and he was going to go into a bean field, and then he's like, fuck that bean field, and then they just killed him. That's really what happened. You could read every source, and they can say, it says that. He would not let his followers eat beans, but, it's true. And he was kind of mad and wild and crazy, but he had the Pythagorean school. They believed that all is number, everything is math, that everything can be understood as math, fundamentally, which is so interesting. And I probably would have hated that idea when I was like 12 years old, but now thinking about it, it's really profound that they knew that back then, and now we're starting to learn more things like that. But his follower, actually, Philolaus and Hecate, they came up with a heliocentric model of the universe. They were followers of his, not his direct school, but within 100 years or so. They came up with this where there's a central fire, and it's not quite right, but this was hidden information for 2,000 years, and the geocentric model existed after this. So this is just amazing that this wasn't actually known, that it stopped civilization for so long. And it was Copernicus that actually, Copernicus was not even going to be an astronomer. He was just some guy that was learning mathematics, and he happened to have this teacher, Brudzinski, and this teacher, he had a hidden Pythagorean relic of heliocentric models of our solar system. And for some reason, this struck such a chord at Copernicus, he became an astronomer overnight, he devoted his life to the theory, and then he was proven right by Kepler and Galileo, but the documents go back to the Pythagorean school 2,000 years before, these hidden documents that his professor in Poland happened to have. It's absolutely incredible. But again, like these people, thank the Lord for them, for doing the hard work and pulling us along into knowing what's going on. And of course, Pythagoras thought about the harmony of spheres, which is kind of leading towards what my idea is, which is kind of amazing. And I think that he might have known what I have discovered 2,500 years ago. But since there's no written account of when he was alive, nobody could quite comprehend what he was saying. But he said that the planets have frequencies that influence us. And the planets also make orchestral music with each other that influence everything. But the thing is that, like, people believe in astrology and all that stuff, yes, it's okay. But there's nothing physical that is connecting the planets in our solar system to Earth and to us. There's gravity, which that's debatable, but there's nothing that is actually physically connected. So there's no physical influence that any of the planets have on us or on Earth. But Pythagoras knew that there is an influence in another dimension that's happening with the planet, or on some other plane. It's affecting us qualitatively through the spiritual world, not through the physical world, through some other world, through the field of knowing, or the field of information itself. And he talked a lot about this, and I believe that maybe he knew, like I said, what I was saying. Okay, so we used Pythagorean music forever, for 2,000 years. But then equal temperament came along, which actually fixed a lot of the problems, because Pythagorean music was just based in fifths. There's just these fifths being stacked, and you can't modulate. You can't go to different key signatures between keys. So they invented a whole temperament which divides every octave perfectly into 12. So it just makes this kind of rounded off system that's not actually as perfect as Pythagorean music, but you can at least modulate, and your ear can't really notice the imperfections in here. But the math is there, which is the 12 to the root note, or of the root of 2. 12 times the root of 2 is the equation, actually, that creates the equal temper music that we know today. And that kind of leads towards my idea, finally. Sorry that it took so fucking long to get here, but we are here. But before I do any more, I need some water. It's because of equal temperament, which is the 12-tone Western system that we use. Because of that this was able to be discovered and thought of. Because you can divide anything however much you want. There's just infinite division, you know. You can divide this space, my finger, infinitely. So we landed on 12 for music because there's something embedded in 12 that has an equilibrium. The 12 is kind of like the number of balance, equilibrium. You also need a minimum of 12 spokes to have a wheel have equilibrium. And that's exactly what we're talking about with the wheel here. So, okay, so there's 12 notes in the equal-tempered Western octave, which sounds really fancy, but it's 12 notes between 12 notes. And there's 12 months in the year. And so with just that, you can correspond each month to each note on the piano. Very simply. With equal-tempered music. Doesn't have to be an equal-tempered music, but just doing that makes it easy that you can play the months on the piano or on any instrument. And it all works out. 1 month per one note. It also makes it easy because you can count 1 month per one note to find relationships. So basically I have made this wheel, which it's an elliptical piano. So the black keys are there and the white keys are there. And then around the edge is, you can choose any note for any sign that you want. It doesn't matter what note you choose, it's just stuff is spaced between. But I chose C or B as January, C for February, and the 7th of every month is the center of every sign. So that's why it's the center of every frequency and equal temperament that I chose. But again, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't matter what note you choose, it's just about the space between, more than the individual notes. But let's see what's going on here. So here are the intervals. So basically, this system is the music of our birthdays, and this is the space between our birthdays. So like every space between has an interval. The only one you're missing down there is major 7th, which is the final one. But every month between has different intervals, and there are microtonal intervals that are further advanced as well. But these are the basic equal temper intervals. So people that are 3 months away from you, 4 months away, they're minor third, major third. And in astrology terms, when you're the same month, it's called conjunction. And when you're 60 degrees apart, which is 2 months away, sextile, etc., square for 90 degrees, trine for 120, and opposition is on you're 6 months apart. That's called 108-degree opposition in astrology. But these are the musical intervals, though, that correspond to those astrology terms. That's just in case anybody is interested in astrology here. I actually don't know much about actual astrology. I just know about musical astrology, which is something that I've been developing. But these are all the intervals. They all have qualities in of themselves. Every interval has a quality. Every relationship has like a fundamental kind of quality with it, in a way. Well, that's kind of what this is illuminated in some ways. But so let's see what is next. My presentation is a little shaky, so. Okay, here we go. Microtonal. So here's a full map here. These are the cents. There's 100 cents per note in an octave. So you get all the way up to 1,200 cents. And I just put the months up there so you can see. And in between the notes are microtonal intervals that are used all over the world. There's Javanese Pula Gamelan, Javanese Palendro Gamelan. There's Thai Burmese Asan, which is a sacred song. the Pythagorean scale, and also Arabic quarter steps. They're in between every single note, these quarter steps, because in Middle Eastern music they go microtonally a quarter step between every note. So these are further, more relationships that we can actually see, and we can use these other world tuning systems to give further emotions that we don't have in our Western tuning systems, to talk about things that we just don't know how to express. But usually we're really microtonal with, or somewhat microtonal with, our birthdays, so it doesn't line up perfectly. So sometimes this is a good map to show what's going on. How I calculated this, and since there's 1,200 cents in an octave, and there's 365.2422 days in a year, that makes 3.28 cents a day. So you can calculate the exact microtonal music of your birthdays, and also all the planets that are the position of the planets. You can convert it perfectly into music very precisely. So, the best example of, the most extreme example of this is our half steps, which when you're 1 month apart, so these two dots, somebody's born in February, somebody's born in March. Let's just say they're February 7th, March 7th, so that it's equal, easy to understand. This is the most extreme example because they're one note next to each other. I'm going to put this on for a second. So they're one note next to each other, which, what does that sound like when it's a half step in music? What does it sound like? Ugh. That's nasty. What, do you guys know what that is? You guys want to say? Exactly. So, that is the sound of the jaw theme. A half step is dissonant, foreboding, it's scary. So what that means is that, I'm just going to go back slightly. So, okay, yeah, right there. Okay, whatever, I didn't get it. So, what that might mean is that, so February, who's right below March, I'm trying to get to a point where you can see the dots. There we go. So, February before March, when February is the low note, it's the Jaws theme, okay? So it's da-dum, da-dum, when February is the low note. When March is the low note, though, the opposite here. March. The opposite, emotion, which is like blissful, nostalgic longing, or like transformative, nostalgic bliss, heaven, or something, you know? Now, if you add some other notes in there, it's really beautiful, you know? But like, just the major seventh is fucking gorgeous. It's the opposite of the Jaws theme, the half step and the major seventh. So, I'm going to go back so you can just see a little bit. I know it's things covering it up, but... So when March is the low note, February is 11 months above, making a major seventh with the music of their birthday. So like, you know... And then when February is the low note, it's dissonant. So what does that mean? What I've found is that the low note is the responsible one in any given situation. It's the rational one. So when February is rational for March, it's... When March is rational for February, it's major seventh. So it's easier for March to be rational for February. It's easier for any month after to be rational for any month before. Because you look up to the months right after you. You literally look up to them, you know? And if you think of anybody born a month after you, you're like, oh, I love the way you are, you know? They're showing you the way. They're pulling you on the train towards where you want to be, you know? And it's very fucking difficult for you to be responsible for somebody born a month after you. It's challenging. It can be. But when they are for you, it's transformative and incredible for you. And, you know, so that's one of the most extreme patterns I've found. Using the same knowledge, you can plug in your birthday and location into any astrology site. This is mine, for instance, and it shows you all the planet positions when you were born. You can convert all the planet positions to exact microtonal notes. It says CET here, but they're actually the degrees change the frequency. And every sign has 30 degrees because 360 divided by 12 is 30. And center is 15. So whenever you see something at 15 degrees, that's in the center of the sign. So any degree of change, you just times that by 3.333 cents, which is what I found. 100 divided by 30 is 3.333. So 3.33 cents per degree. So I was able to calculate the exact microtonal music of people's birth charts. So you can listen to all the planets and the sun and hear the mood of your life. You hear the whole chord of your life, you know, like of everything. And I'll have some examples of that right here. Let's see if it comes up. Out to the outer planet. So that was the sound of my birth chart. And then, so here's another example. These are two people's entire birth charts that are going to be going between to hear the difference of their entire soul. Because you have a lot going on with all the planet positions. And so there's a lot of frequencies going on. Sometimes maybe that's why we just want to start breaking down and laughing and crying around each other, because of the frequencies we're making with each other is just vast. Something else I've come up with are musical horoscopes, which are your resonance with yourself on any given day, with that day in relationship to your birthday. So if you think about what day it is today, you can calculate this right now. You can say, how far away from your birthday are you right now? And then this is a chart of what your musical horoscope is. It's the musical emotions you make with yourself on any given day. So, and then this is like a chart where, like, right after your birthday, you make, when you're being responsible, when you're the low note, you're making an octave with yourself. So it's very easy to be responsible right after your birthday. When you're right before your birthday, when you're being the low note, the rational one, with yourself, it's very dissonant because you're right before your birthday. So responsibilities are going to be challenging, but sometimes you need a good challenge right before your birthday. But so this is a chart of what you feel around a certain time. When you're being responsible after your birthday, you're going to feel agreeability, release, and you're going to be able to get things done. When you're being irresponsible, it's going to be extremely dissonant in the chord that you make with yourself. And it goes all the way on, like 3 months after your birthday, which is when you create a major six with yourself, when you're being responsible, which is an uplifting chord, getting hooked up. It's like getting your foot in the door. So when you're being responsible 3 months after your birthday, you're hooking yourself up. And when you're being irresponsible, you might be having some kind of altered state, because a minor third, which is like, I've just found that is just the sound of altered state. It's strange. Like, riders on the storm. It's just kind of like, it just is the sound. I found that there's emotions for certain frequencies, for certain intervals. And so you can kind of see what base emotions you're going to be feeling on any given day based on the music you make with yourself, in a way. And here's another example. It's like, this can go either way, but 6 months after your birthday is a tritone, which is the most dissonant frequency, like that. So when you're being, the tritone is a little crazy because it's hard for either person to be responsible for each other because it's the only symmetrical one. But when you're being responsible around your birthday, or around 6 months after your birthday, it might be a bit triggering because this is kind of a triggering sound. But when you're being irrational, that's actually kind of a whimsical creative, irrational sound, so it's really good for exploring your creativity 6 months after your birthday, you know. So certain times of the year for doing certain things, and you can use this kind of as a guide, a musical guide, to see what happens. So here is, okay, what is this? This is, you can use this for any day, so it doesn't have to be your horoscope. So I calculated the exact music of December 21st, 2022. The moon is the thing that's shifting the chord most often, because the moon is the fastest moving body in relationship to the sun, or to our Earth. So it's chromatically shifting. The moon is chromatically shifting the mood of the chord the whole time. So it's moving through the whole scale chromatically. So that's the thing that changes the most on any given day. I believe it takes 2 days to go through a sign, for the moon to go through a sign. So it's the fastest moving day. Here's a weird example. I just came across this today, or a couple days ago, because I was just making this presentation, and I saw a YouTube video that was like, David Cross left Stephen Colbert's show live on air, and I was like, I bet they're half steps, and they fucking are. They're half steps. They're 1 month apart from each other, okay? So, and look, so David Cross, April 4th, Stephen Colbert, May 13th. So David Cross looks up to Stephen Colbert, kind of, you know? Like, so just watch this play out. Think about this, and then watch. Like, be biased for a second.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Hey, hello.
Hello.
Nice to see you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, one of the reasons why I don't think I've ever interviewed you. Oh, I have. That's true. I have not interviewed you since 2003. You were the second person I ever interviewed, and that
At
was
interview school.
That was.
Oh
that
my
was.
gosh.
This was 2003. I interviewed you on The Daily Show. I think John and his lovely wife Tracy were having their first child, and you were on there for your album, and you'll say, "That's not me."
Shut up, you baby.
Yes.
Man, you're a steel trap.
Well, of my stuff.
Do you remember anything I said?
Yeah.
What? What?
Did you write the James and the Giant Peach sketch with Steve O'Donnell?
No.
That was Spike Feresten then. There were a lot of great people.
Okay, great.
On
We'll get him here.
Come on. Look, I remember I was intimidated by you back then. I was intimidated you because you and Bob, and obviously Bob had been on main stage at Second City, and you were a friend of his, and you guys had this deal for the show that you were going to do on HBO called Mr. Show, and I was...
It's called the Home Box Office. Oh, the show. Yes, the show.
Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, if anything, what I remember is just hoping you would think anything I said was funny. And the fact that you remembered something I said and thought it was funny means a lot to me. And I just want to say that everything I've ever seen you do, with the exception of the guy in Men in Black, was really funny. Everything else was funny. Everything.
All right. Okay.
So, yeah. So Stephen Colbert makes this is. I actually made an app that plays the music of your birthday precisely. It plays the exact music, and I'm going to show it here. But yeah. So when David Cross was trying to be responsible, or was just being rational, he was super dissonant. but when Steven was being responsible, he just made him feel transformed and nostalgic, and like you see the resonances playing out. And Key and Peele are also half steps, also. So you can see their roles that they play with the characters they choose are based on their actual relationships, because they're jiving with each other and making these characters, and you can see how they're playing it out with their characters, actually, their actual relationships. So sometimes acting, this can be used for casting, for sure, in many different ways. But this is the actual music of their birthdays and the app that I made. So it's just this app, and you choose the birthday. I was going to show you in real time, but I couldn't figure out how to do it. Oh yeah, and then this is going to take a second because it's kind of broken. So hold on, there we go. But so they're half steps. So what that sounds like. Dissonances sometimes with half steps. With the lower months, you can expect them to act dissonantly sometimes. I don't want to make sure I'm not going too far over here. I'm almost done. I'm very close to being done. So this app just gives like a explanation of what it might mean. It just it says some things, and then it gives some cards that you can download and share with the illustrations on it. Says you create the music of jazz, and Stephen Colbert is the root note responsible one. David Cross is the major seventh above, which gives the emotion of nostalgic transcendent bliss. And there's a card for everything, like you're in a transformatively intense relationship, blah, 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 and then let's see, you have high highs and low lows. Yeah, half steps have high highs and low lows. And it says when David crosses the root note, Stephen Colbert is a half step above, which is a foreboding sound akin to the Jaws theme. So look, that kind of happened on the show. You could see the Jaws theme happening there, like with their resonance. You can see it play out in so many different ways with different people. But so here's another funny example. I made a TikTok about this because I saw that all these articles on Billboard and everything were like, J-Lo fired her Virgo backup dancers. And I'm like, I bet she's a Leo. She's a fucking Leo. Because, look, her birthday is July 24th. Virgos are August 23rd and up, so Virgos are right above her. So Virgos can lead her, because she's a major seventh above them, but when she's trying to lead Virgos, it's the Jaws theme again. Virgos cannot be her backup dancer, because they can't accept her leading. They'll want to lead her, and she can't accept them leading her because she's J-Lo. She's the leader she made her shit. She can choose whatever she wants to do. But people were really pissed at her in the public media that she fired her Virgo backup dancers. Fuck no, she's onto some shit, dude. She knows the truth of resonance, that she can't lead Virgos the other way around. That's just how it is. So you can hear the frequencies of what she sounds like with her birthday. Let's see here. I just chose September 7th as the middle of Virgo. So there's the voicing of our chords with her. It's the voicings of our roles with each other, basically, through music resonance. And the low note is the responsible one. The high note is the irrational one in any situation. It's flipping all the time, flipping every second sometimes. But of the dissonant, she's gonna be dissonant. She's gonna freak out. Maybe J-Lo's just gonna freak out, just like David Cross did, Stephen Colbert. Maybe she's gonna freak out. She just doesn't want to freak out anymore. And there's a reason why. You're more likely to express those emotions with those chords, those people in your life. It seems. A really famous example of Elton John and Bernie Taupin. They're almost exactly 2 months apart, which is a whole step in music or a minor seventh. So a whole step is like this. 2 notes away. So when Elton John is the root note and Bernie Taupin's above, it's really deep and intellectual and kind of tense. But it works. But when Bernie Taupin's the root note, it's the opposite. It's like free feeling, like rock and roll, So when Bernie Taupin would make the lyrics for Elton's music, it would free him from worry and concern, you know, because that's their resonance. Elton could be the zany, spontaneous, crazy, wacky one, and Bernie Taupin can do the communication, and there's nothing more rational than communication. So he can write the lyrics, and it frees Elton from worry and concern, which is the emotion of a minor. That probably happened. Like, you could assume that that happened, knowing Elton John. And it also says the birthdays create the music of rock and roll, which is like, da, 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 you know, like rock and roll, basic music. So when you're 2 months apart from somebody, it's a good grounded resonance. It's very deep and intellectual and very freeing at the same time. It's one of the best resonances out there, especially for collaboration. So that's just one example. Well, there's just several examples. I think we're almost out of examples, and then maybe we can do some different things. Let's see what is left here. I was just showing other parts of the app. You could save people's relationships and people and stuff like that. This is going to come out in a month, so it's not out yet. But it's something that I've been working on, and yeah. But, okay, so there's more to go. Oh, fuck, I just totally lost my place. Well, what we could do is your guys' birthdays, if you want. If anybody wants to, go, 2 people do it. Did anybody come here together? Are there 2 people here? Here? If any of those 2 people want to do their birthdays, raise your hand as high as you can. Okay, you guys did it first. Okay. So, what are your guys' birthdays? You came here together, your friends? Cool. March 27th, Aaron, and October 4th. So, I'm just going to use the app. I was going to be able to plug the app into my computer so you could see it projected and hear it, but I'm just going to do it here because I'm just going to do it. So I have it here. March 27th, Aaron, and what's your name again? Sorry. Addison. October 7th, 4th. Okay, so. Psycho. You guys are psycho. So that means you basically chose half birthday, essentially, which is a mirror. So what this says is you're 6 months away from each other. You're nearly symmetrical on either side. You have many symmetries between you two, like having similar lifestyles or similar life experiences. You reflect each other like 2 mirrors facing each other, creating a hollow of feedback, which allows for some like mischief, endless laughs, and also a fair amount of troublemaking. These relationships are meant for having fun and venturing into the unknown together. It may also be more of a challenge for either person to be responsible for either person. This is the only one where either person is challenged to be responsible. Just for having fun, your relationship. It's just about whimsical, fun, creative energy, and when it comes down to responsibility, fuck that shit. But there's something about like male, we like feel like you don't need to rely on each other. We can just exist, coexist. We don't have to rationally rely on each other. We can just be friends and coexist. It works out great. We have fun. Always do sometimes drugs together, and cartels do drugs together. Okay, they're troublemakers. They get into shit. They piss on walls and dumpsters and do drugs together. Just do weird shit. You know, Christ like fucking psycho. It's the devil. But it's great best friend energy. And it can be good for relationships. But with romantic relationships, crises can be very triggering. But sometimes those triggers need to occur for you to unknot the triggers and get them out. So everything's meaningful. Let's do another one. Okay, you guys? October 17th. And, what's your name? Hannah? And what's the next one? What's your name? I don't know if it's you, but it's going to you. Remind me again, I shouldn't have said that. What's your birthday again? April 5th. So, alright. Microtonal tritone. Oh, similar. similar, but this also includes the microtonal intervals between the intervals, so you get more emotion, more stuff in there, you know? Sorry, I'm talking to you guys. Okay. I don't have to know, I like not knowing anything, so if it says, details where you'll have maybe differences, these reflect aspects of yourself that can be included. So what you guys are in the microtonal tuning chart is a gamelan song. It's not in our Western tuning. It's a dog, a gamelan. It's like you only hear this in Japanese music, which is the sound of drums. It's like an unstable, cosmic, crazy, irrational thing. But it's also great at being on the same page, but also being really experimental, being really out there, being really into weird shit. Probably why you're here. This is basically like an analog speaking, you know. So like, and so yeah, I hope that helps. And you're kind of almost symmetrical, so it can work. There are some roles, but it's basically even. So you guys are just weird. You do experimental weird shit, and you love the irrational. Explore the irrational with each other. The creativity you make incredible things with each other. Like that. And any others? Yes. May 30th? And give me one other person's birthday in your life and don't tell me who it is. April 30th? May 30th and April 30th? Is April 30th in this room? Okay. You guys are half steps. Well, you look up to him. Right? Do you? Yes? Yeah, in his rational way. When he's rational, you're like, fuck yeah. It blisses you out. It like transforms you when he's rational, when he's responsible for you, you know. Right? Yeah. Yeah. And a major seventh. So you're a major seventh above it, which is like my favorite chord ever. It's what gave me the idea of this. Your guys' relationship is what gave me this idea. Because it's 1 month, one note difference. It's the most extreme one, and so it's more obvious, you know. But yeah, and it's also just great for going to irrational places that are far away, doing crazy vacation, weird things, going far and wide for the craziest things. Really, that's how it should be. Just up and down like a roller coaster. You know, it should be like a roller coaster. You embrace it. Is it kind of like that? Is it a bit up and down, like crazy? Up and down. It should be emotionally up and down, and that's the true resonance you guys have. But you get that if you like that, because if you like roller coasters, 2.5-step relationship. If you like your life to be fun, sure, but it's gonna be fucking crazy. But if you want that life, you get what you want. You know, you attract what you want. But if anybody else has specific birthday. I'm pretty much wrapping up right now, but if anybody has like, they want to give me their birthday to somebody else's birthday that is not in this room, totally, so they're going to do a blind test. Anybody wants to do it? November 7th? And then one other birthday, don't tell me who it is. Okay. I'm just going to do this on my calendar because it's easier to count on the calendar. November 7th and, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you're basically fifth. You're also kind of in between fifth and triton, like what we were talking about with them, which is like a best friend energy, seeing eye to eye, but the fine details get really hard because it's like you're microtonal with each other. It's a crazy chord. But you should fundamentally be really on the same page. It's just those tiny things that are so little that could be amplified, but it's because you're so similar, right? You're so similar, so like those little things will come out. You just want to tune each other up. You want to kind of. I feel like that's the purpose of everything. It's actually to tune us up. It's like I feel like that is the purpose of life. Actually, is to tune your soul, tune your soul up with everybody around you. To evolve to it, to engage, work with it. And the implications to this, just before I go, I want to just run through some little things. I just thought of some technological implications because how is this happening? Like, if we are resonating musically with each other, how the fuck is that happening if it's not physical? You know, like the planets aren't resonating with us in any measurable capacity. We're not resonating with us in any measurable capacity. So what's happening? I think it's happening in wormholes. That's my idea. I think that there are these things called Einstein-Rosen bridges, which is fancy for wormholes. And the same year that Einstein and Rosen created this idea, they created with Podolsky the Einstein-Podolsky-Rosen phenomenon, which is entanglement, which is how particles share information faster than the speed of light, which is now known that they can do that, which is kind of like information teleportation. It's not physical, but it's information teleportation. And that's what I feel like is happening with us, is teleporting information, qualities of information. Because, like, I could be writing email to somebody I've never met before, and I'm already resonating in the way with them with our birthday. And how is that possible without knowing them or anything? And he's on the other side of the earth. It's through an alocal system of a network of connecting. It's a connecting network that is probably in another dimension. But if you're interested in this sort of thing, look up Leonard Susskind. He's a theoretical physicist that's really interested in these sort of things. He created this equation which is ER equals EPR, which is Einstein-Rosen bridge equals Einstein-Podolsky-Rosen phenomenon, which means that wormholes are caused through entanglement, and vice versa. These were written in the same year. Einstein's a fucking genius for creating both these in the same year. He thought they had nothing to do with each other. But we're finding out in the last couple of years of black hole physics, because I investigate black hole physics and do his findings all the time, we're finding out that entanglement and wormholes they're one and the same. And so this could be one of the explanations as to what's happening in the vacuum of space time with each other. And there's a whole other list of things that I've listed of implications. And I don't have to go through them all because I've been talking for way too long. But I think it's just it's helped me to become aware of these resonances because it's like you're not flying blind. Like you have a blueprint for your emotions as people, and you can expect certain emotions, and when they come up, your behavior can be better if you're aware of it. You can pause before you act. And it could have profound implications of harmonizing our relationships. Like if you're married, if you guys, like, are you guys married or are you just in if you're in a half-step relationship and you're married, you want to have a blueprint for that. You can see when things come up that it's just the music rather than us individually. You know, it doesn't have to be you guys individually. It can be just a space between. And everything is 99.99999% space. Matter is only 0.00001% of space. The actual particles are nothing. It's all the space. But it's not empty. It's filled with fluctuation and energy. And we can't measure it yet, but space is the only thing that's omnipresent that's connecting all things. Space. And I feel like it's within the space-based technology, the space between rather than the things themselves, that we're going to find some kind of advanced future for our species. So thanks.
Hey, give it up one more time for Lionel. You said your app comes out in a month? Okay, if it does come out, where can we find it? Where can we go for like updates? Instagram. You heard it here, folks. First, Instagram. Get the musical astrology app when it comes out. If Vinyl can pay the developer. Give it up for Quinn Averill, everybody.